Hello, I'm Adam Southern, and this is Page by Page, a show dedicated to promoting literacy, authors, their works, and their words. And today I'm honored to have JT Ellison with me. JT is the author of over 10 novels, New York Times best-selling author, and her latest book, When Shadows Fall, came out in February this year, right?
Right.
So just very honored to have you with me today.
I'm
Thanks
honored
for
to
coming.
be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. I have to tell you, I started reading this book and I could not put it down. I was reading one evening and I got where my eyes were getting heavy and I looked over, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I had been reading since 7 o'clock that night and just could not put it down. It is a real page turner.
That's what we want to hear.
So as the book starts out, let's just go ahead and dive into this. Dr. Samantha Owens, she's at Georgetown University starting a new career. Can you tell us a little bit of her backstory? What led her to Georgetown?
Sure. This is actually the second series that I've written. The first one is Taylor Jackson. She's a homicide lieutenant in Nashville. And in that series, Sam is the medical examiner. And I wanted to do something new. I'd written multiple Taylor books in a row, and I wanted to change things up, and we decided to spin Sam off. There was a problem. Sam had a family. She had a husband. She had twins. And my agent said, they've all got to die. I said, no, I'm not doing that. He says, no, you are doing that. And so her family had to die. And that's the reason that she's in D.C. now. She's left Nashville. She lost them in the Nashville floods, which was a little bit of a love letter to everything that we all went through in 2010. And she has moved to D.C. She's taken this job. She's out of law enforcement where she thinks that's what she wants. She wants to be away from anything that can remind her of what she's been through. And of course, it's not how it's going to work out.
Yeah, like you said, she thought she was far away from law enforcement. And she's settling in to be a college professor, very quiet. And she gets a letter, doesn't she?
From Timothy Savage.
Yeah.
Dear Dr. Owens, I would be honored if you would please solve my murder.
How would you like to get a letter like that in the mail? That was
I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all.
That was kind of spooky, but it really sets the book in motion. And I think it was wild, the things that happened after she received this letter and this game that was really started from this letter. Could you kind of guide our listeners into what happened after she received this letter in the mail?
She immediately thinks it's a joke. And realizes rather quickly, well, maybe it's not, and goes to look up this case, and this man is dead, but he's been determined as suicide. And she can't figure out, why would somebody send me a letter and then commit suicide? That's crazy. And later that night, his lawyer shows up on her doorstep and says, listen, you need to be involved in this. He asked that you autopsy his body. And, he's set aside some money and everything. And in the letter, he does make mention that she's going to be in danger if she gets involved in this. But, danger is kind of her middle name. Sam's really good with that kind of stuff. So she goes to Lynchburg, finds out, yes, it is actually a murder. And the story kind of spins off from there.
And what a story it was. Whenever I thought I had figured the book out, it took another turn, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, good.
So you're very good at what you do.
Thank you.
You're very good. And what I think is very interesting is I read in one of your interviews, or maybe in your biography, that someone in college told you that you would never be a published writer.
Yeah, my thesis advisor, I had two thesis advisors. One was for the long form, and one was for short form. And one told me that I wrote too much like B-grade detective fiction. I'm going, well, what's wrong with B-grade detective fiction? I kind of like that kind of stuff. And the other said, you're not good enough to be published, and she wouldn't give me a recommendation to get my MFA. And so I stopped writing for 8 years. I left. I mean, I was a dual major in college, and I went the politics route, which is a good thing. I met my husband the first night of grad school in politics, so everything's meant, everything happens for a reason. But it took 8 years to come back to it, and when I did, it felt so good. I knew immediately this is what I was supposed to be doing. And, So she was wrong.
Yeah,
she was just wrong.
Yeah, joke's on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It absolutely is.
Well, I'm glad that you picked writing back up because this is just a great story, and I'm look forward to reading the rest of the series. I'm going to pick them up a little bit later and start with those. Reading the book, you said that your dual majors weren't in forensic anything.
No,
Was it?
no, not at all.
I was reading about Samantha Owens in this book, and I thought, oh, God, J.T. Ellison must be a former medical examiner. I mean, no. I mean, you've only sat through, what, one autopsy?
Well, yeah, it was one morning of autopsies. There were 4 autopsies. And I hadn't done an autopsy until we were, I think I was 9 books in before I actually did an autopsy. I didn't have any desire to do it. I'm never going to get it out of my head. Right. I didn't even have to take notes. I don't even have to look at my notes about that day. Everything is all very clear. But, you know, it's with Sam and with Taylor both. You know, Taylor's a homicide lieutenant. Sam's a medical examiner. I just did a lot of research and a lot of hands-on with Metro Nashville. Did several ride-alongs, worked with homicide, did overnight patrol, talked with the FBI. I've been to visit the FBI in New York. You know, just a lot of hands-on research, a lot of reading, a lot of research with you know, thank God for Google. What would we do without it? You can get pretty much anything. And there are a lot of really great virtual autopsies and things like that online as well. So I would do that, but I did finally have to
bite the bullet
and go in. And, you know, my biggest fear was there would be somebody my father's age or a child. Yeah. And of course there was somebody my father's age and a child. And a woman my age, and a teenager. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. This is not fair. But it was fascinating, and it informs the books in a way that without it, they would have been very, very flat.
Yeah, you can really pick up on that experience in your book. Like I said, I thought that you were a former EME by reading this. Just a great book. Do you have any advice to any people who aspire to be writers?
Read everything. Everything you can get your hands on. A lot of people, a lot of writers won't read in their genre, and I think that's crazy. I think that's what you should be reading. I think you should know everything that's out there. You have to write every day as well, and take chances and do things that make you uncomfortable. If your story's making you uncomfortable, you're doing something right. So it's just really just practice, and read.
Well, that's good advice.
I know, there should be a secret handshake or something. It's like, you know, oh, if you do this, boom, you'll have story. Yeah. But that's just not how it is. It's just hard work.
And that's the truth about a lot of things, just getting in there and doing a lot of hard work. I know this is a series, Samantha Owens. What's coming next for her?
What's coming next? I am starting a new book with her in mid-April. I'm juggling a bunch of deadlines right now with other stuff. But her next book is called What Lies Behind. And it is more a locked room perfect mystery. This one is a thriller. I like to change them up. I like to do mysteries and thrillers and psychological thrillers and gothic romance. You know, again, I like to go outside of my own comfort zone. I think that's when you get your best writing. So this one will be a locked room mystery with a medical student who is killed in his home. That there's no motive, there's no sign of forced entry, anything like that. It should be fun. Yeah. It'll be a challenge.
I'm looking forward to it. Before we leave, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. You're a Nashville area author, and you can pick up a lot of that in your book, and also reading your biography, a lot of the places that you went to high school were in this book. So how important is it for a writer to use places that they know when they're writing a book?
That's a great question. I think it's actually very important. It lends a verisimilitude that you would never get otherwise. You have to not only see what someplace looks like, but you have to smell it, and you have to feel it, and feel what the air is like, and what people are doing on the street. And you can't do that just through research. You have to actually be there. So, you know, my kind of goal in life is to set books in far locales so I can travel to them and do the research. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
But it's nice to, you know, take something like this, set in Georgetown. I grew up in McLean. I went to high school in McLean, Virginia, and spent a lot of time in Georgetown. And it's nice to have some place that I know. Same with Nashville, having some place that I'm familiar with, you know, I can always just scoot out and find a place to drop a body, and that's really convenient. And same with DC, you know, I know all the little nooks and crannies, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy about mystery writers and thriller writers, because they're all the time, their mind is going, where's the next mystery? Where can I dump this body?
You have no idea. My husband sleeps with one eye open. Let's go down to that empty quarry, hon.
Do you keep up with the news a lot?
Oh, sure.
So some of these cases, you might use some of the evidence, some of the case for your next novel.
Sure.
How much of it comes from just your imagination?
90%.
90% of it.
90% is imagination, 10% is, you know, I've seen an article in the paper, or I've heard something on the news, or run across something, you know, online, and it sparks an idea, and it's like, oh, I could put that in there, and the next thing you know, you're off and running. And I've only based one book on a real case before, and that was Judas Kiss, and I decided never to do it again, because I was very afraid that if the woman who died mother ever saw that and knew that I had based it on her daughter, that she would be upset and offended by that, and I decided never to do it again.
Yeah.
So I usually create them myself, and then, you know.
So just a little spark, and then you create the rest of the wildfire up here.
That's right.
That's awesome. I really enjoy reading this book. I look forward to reading the rest of the series, especially since you're a Nashville author. I think we have so much talent here in the Mid-State. And what was the journey that brought you here? I know your husband was originally from this area, right?
Right. He's born and bred in Nashville. Okay. And we met, like I said, in the first night of graduate school at George Washington University. And he wanted to come home. So after we finished our degree and got married, we moved back to Nashville in '98. Okay. And it was the best move we could have ever made. It's a fabulous town.
Oh, it is. It is. You originally grew up in, what, Colorado?
Mm-hmm, I did.
So all of this stuff in the book where Samantha Owens is going around with the gun, I can just picture you in Colorado with a 22 carbine.
I do like my guns.
Do you?
I like to shoot. We were just shooting a couple of weeks ago with my dad. I mean, it's when you grow up in Colorado, we were out in the woods. I mean, there's nothing there. It's 30 miles to the nearest town. You need to be able to handle yourself. Right. And so we were trained from a very young age how to shoot and gun safety and all of that kind of stuff. You don't use it as much when you live in Nashville, but hey, you still go shooting and everything. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, but it also helps with the books. If you know what a gun feels like in your hands, then you can write about it. So
I imagine that Samantha Owens takes some of her characteristics from you, maybe a little bit. No. She is definitely I'm a little more like Taylor. I'm a little more impetuous and a little more black and white. Sam is a very gray shaded character. She has a lot of layers, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of things that have happened to her. Some of them forced on her by me, and some of them because of who she was in the beginning. She's really fun to write because she's not a familiar face. She's, the places are familiar, but Sam herself, is really a creation that's ongoing. In every situation's
different. I never know how she's going to react to something. I know what I would do. I would turn and run fast in the opposite direction. And she's not like that at all.
That's great. I really appreciate you coming. I'm looking forward to your next book.
Thank you.
If you haven't already, go pick up a copy of When Shadows Fall. It's well worth the read. It really is. And come visit the library and keep reading. Thank you.